She woke up in a strange room, blood on her hands, a knife on the floor, and a man she didn't know, lying motionless beside her. Isabella had no memory of how she got there. But someone was banging on the door, and she had exactly 60 seconds to decide, run or stay and face what she couldn't remember doing. Have you ever made a single decision that changed the trajectory of your entire life? In Isabella's case, I'm speechless, but I look forward to your judgment in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, and watch to the end. Isabella was the kind of girl everyone thought they knew. Woman in tech, as friends call her. 24 years old, QA specialist at a tech startup in Abuja, always the responsible one. Always the girl who left the party early, who double-checked her locks, who never took drinks from strangers. Her best friend Vera was the opposite. Wild. Free. Beautiful chaos wrapped in designer dresses and reckless laughter. Vera believed life was meant to be lived on the edge, tasted at full volume, experienced without regret. You're going to die having never really lived, Vera would say, shaking her head at Isabella's careful existence. And on that Friday evening in late November, those words would prove tragically prophetic. It started innocently enough. Just one drink, Bella. Just one night where you're not the boring one, Vera begged over the phone. There's this new lounge in Maitama. Everyone's talking about it. Live band, amazing cocktails. Steven's going to be there. Steven. Isabella's heart did that stupid flutter thing it always did when she heard his name. Stephen Cole, 6'2" of charming smiles and thoughtful conversation. They'd been doing the Just Friends dance for 3 months now. Ever since they met at a work conference, Stephen asked about you. Vera continued, her voice sing-song with mischief. Asked if you'd be there tonight. That's all it took. One mention of his name, and Isabella's carefully constructed walls started to crack. Fine, she heard herself say, but just for a few hours. I'm not staying out all night. Vera's squeal of delight echoed through the phone. Yes, wear that black dress, the one that makes you look like a whole snack. I'm picking you up at 9. Isabella stared at her reflection that evening, barely recognizing herself. The black dress hugged curves she usually hid under blazers and conservative work clothes. Her natural hair was twisted into an elegant updo. Makeup, actual makeup, not just lip gloss, transformed her features into something bolder, more confident. Who are you? She whispered to her reflection. The girl staring back didn't answer. Vera arrived in a blur of perfume and excitement, her silver Toyota Camry pulsing with Afrobeats. Oh my God, you look incredible, she screamed, grabbing Isabella's hand. Stephen is going to lose his mind. The lounge was everything Vera promised, and more. Dim amber lighting. A live band playing smooth jazz fusion. Beautiful people everywhere, laughing and dancing like tomorrow didn't exist. The air smelled of expensive cologne and possibility, and there he was. Stephen stood near the bar, talking to 2 other men Isabella didn't recognize. He wore a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and dark jeans. When he saw her, his entire face transformed with that smile, the one that made her forget how to breathe. Isabella, he said, crossing the space between them in 3 long strides. You came. I came, she replied, suddenly shy. They talked for hours, about childhood dreams and adult disappointments, about the kind of life they wanted versus the kind they were living. His hand found hers at some point, fingers interlacing like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Vera danced nearby with a guy named Jamal, shooting Isabella encouraging thumbs up between songs. I'm really glad you're here, Stephen said, his brown eyes serious. I've been wanting to tell you something. Isabella's heart hammered. What? Let me get us another drink first, he said. Don't move. She watched him walk toward the bar, her mind racing with possibilities. This was it. The moment. The confession she'd been hoping for. Stephen returned with 2 cocktails, something pink and tropical looking in tall glasses. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Isabella echoed. The drink was sweet, fruity, with a pleasant warmth that spread through her chest. They clinked glasses. They drank. And that's when everything started to blur. Isabella blinked. The light seemed too bright suddenly, too loud. The music distorted into something underwater and strange. "You okay?" Stephen's voice sounded far away, even though he was right in front of her. I don't feel right," she managed. Her legs wobbled. The room tilted sideways. Stephen's hand was on her arm. Hey, let me get you some air. Come on." She tried to focus on his face, but it kept sliding out of view. Tried to call for Vera, but her tongue felt thick and useless. "Just need air," she slurred. Stephen guided her through the crowd. Or was it Stephen? The face kept changing, morphing into someone else, someone she didn't know. Cold air hit her face. They were outside, in a parking lot. Where's Vera?" Isabella's words came out wrong, jumbled. "She's coming," the voice said. But it wasn't Stephen's voice anymore. It was deeper, rougher. A car door opened. Hands, strong hands, guided her inside. "Wait," she tried to say. "This isn't... Stephen?" But the darkness was already pulling her under. Down, down, down into a black hole where sound and light didn't exist. And then, nothing. When Isabella opened her eyes, she was in hell. A small, unfamiliar room. Gray walls. Sort of like a hotel, but she wasn't sure. The smell of cigarettes and something metallic and wrong. She was on a bed, if you could call it that. The white bed cover had bloodstains all over, and her hands were covered in blood. Isabella screamed. She scrambled backward, hitting the wall. That's when she saw him. A man. Early 40s, maybe. Lying face down on the floor beside the bed. His shirt was dark with blood. A kitchen knife lay inches from his outstretched hand. "No, no, no, no," Isabella sobbed, staring at her trembling, blood-stained fingers. "What did I—" She had no memory. Nothing. Just the lounge, the drink, and then... this. How long had she been here? Hours? Days? Bang, 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 someone was pounding on the door. "Police, open up." Isabella's blood turned to ice. "We know you're in there. Open this door now or we're coming in." She looked around wildly. One door. The one the police were about to break down. One window. Barred with metal. No phone. No bag. No escape. Her eyes landed on the man again. Was he dead? Did she... "I didn't do this," she whispered. "I didn't..." The door burst open. 3 police officers flooded in, guns drawn. "Hands up! Hands up now!" Isabella raised her blood-covered hands, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. Please, Save it!" the lead officer barked. He was a large man with cold eyes. "We've got all the evidence we need right here." They dragged her out of that room in handcuffs. Neighbors lined the corridor of what she now realized was a cheap hotel. They stared at her with horror and disgust. Someone spat in her direction. "Kill her!" an old woman shrieked. "They should hang her!" Isabella sobbed harder. This couldn't be happening. This was a nightmare. She'd wake up in her own bed, and this would all be some horrible dream. But the handcuffs cutting into her wrists were very real. The police station was a concrete building that smelled of sweat and desperation. They threw her into a cell with 4 other women who looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. "First time?" one asked, eyeing Isabella's blood-stained dress. Isabella couldn't answer. She curled into a corner and shook. Hours passed. or maybe minutes. Time had lost all meaning. Finally, they pulled her out, took her to an interrogation room where 2 detectives sat across from her. One was the large man from earlier. The other was a woman. Inspector Grace Okonkwo, her badge red, with sharp eyes and a harder expression. Isabella, Inspector Grace said, sliding a folder across the table. Age 24, works at Tech Vision Solutions. No criminal record. Until tonight. I didn't do anything, Isabella cried. I went to a lounge with my friend. I had a drink with someone named Stephen, and then I woke up in that room. I don't remember anything in between. The male detective, Inspector Jeff Belogan, laughed. It was not a kind sound. Let me tell you what happened, Isabella. You met Michael Adeyemi at that lounge. You went back to his hotel room. Things got violent. Maybe he didn't want to pay you. Maybe he tried something you didn't like. So you stabbed him. 7 times. 7... What? No. I've never seen that man before. Really? Inspector Grace opened the folder. She pulled out photos and spread them on the table. Isabella's stomach dropped. The first photo showed her at the lounge, laughing with the man from the hotel room floor. They looked intimate, comfortable. The second showed them leaving together, his arm around her waist. The third showed them entering the hotel room, and Isabella was smiling. No, Isabella whispered. That's not... I don't remember any of this. The hotel has cameras, Isabella. We have you on video. The weapon has your fingerprints. The victim's blood is all over you. And you were found alone in a locked room with his body. Inspector Jeff leaned forward. This is the easiest case I've seen all year. But I didn't do it, Isabella screamed. Someone drugged me. My friend Vera was there. Call her, call Stephen, they'll tell you. Inspector Grace's expression shifted slightly. What's Vera's full name? Vera Johnson. She's my best friend. She picked me up. Her number is... Isabella stopped. She didn't have her phone. It's in my phone. I don't remember the number, but she works at the bank. You can find her. The 2 inspectors exchanged a look. We'll check on that, Inspector Grace said carefully. In the meantime, Isabella Monroe, you're being charged with murder. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Murder. Isabella barely remembered being processed. The orange jumpsuit, the mugshot, the cell, different from the first one, smaller and colder. She lay on the concrete bench and stared at the ceiling. How had her life become this? 12 hours ago, she was worrying about a work presentation. Now she was a murder suspect, and she couldn't remember anything that would prove her innocence. Stephen. Where was Stephen? Why hadn't he reported her missing? And Vera. Oh God, Vera must be losing her mind. As if in answer to her thoughts, a guard appeared at her cell door. Monroe, you have a visitor. Hope surged through Isabella's chest. Vera. It had to be Vera. But when she was led into the visitor's room, a glass partition separating her from the outside world, the person waiting wasn't Vera. It was a man in his late 30s, wearing an expensive suit and an expression of deep concern. Ms. Isabella, he said, my name is Peter Nwosu. I'm an attorney. I've been retained to represent you. Isabella stared at him quietly with shaking hands. Who sent you? Vera? Peter's expression grew complicated. Ms. Isabella, we need to talk about Vera Johnson. Something in his tone made Isabella's blood run cold. What about her? There is no Vera Johnson working at any bank in Abuja. In fact, there's no Vera Johnson matching the description you gave to police anywhere in the FCT. The words didn't make sense. Isabella shook her head. That's impossible. Vera is my best friend. We've known each other for 2 years. The phone number you gave police, it's disconnected. Has been for months. The apartment address you provided, empty. No one's lived there in over a year. The room started spinning. No, Isabella whispered. No, That can't be right. I was just at her place last week. We've been friends since I moved here. She introduced me to people. We go out together. Ms. Isabella, I don't know who this woman was that you knew as Vera Johnson, but I need you to understand something very serious. Peter leaned forward, his eyes intense. I believe you were targeted. This was planned. What do you mean? The man you're accused of killing, Michael Adiemi. He was wealthy, very wealthy, real estate developer, multiple properties, extensive investments. He was also married with 3 children. Isabella's head spun. I don't understand. What does that have to do with... His wife filed for divorce 3 months ago. Contentious split, custody battle, money battle. If Michael died before the divorce was finalized... Peter paused. His wife stands to inherit everything. But if he died by violence, and there was someone to blame, a young woman found in a hotel room, his blood on her hands, well, that makes for a very convenient narrative, doesn't it? The implications crashed over Isabella like a tidal wave. You think his wife set this up? That Vera, or whoever she was working with her? I think you were drugged and framed, Ms. Isabella. The question is, can we prove it? Over the next 3 days, Isabella lived in a nightmare. Peter worked tirelessly, but the evidence was damning. The prosecution painted her as a sex worker who killed a client. The media ran with it. Her face was all over the news. QA expert or cold-blooded killer? Her parents, simple religious people from Delta, came to see her once. Her mother cried the entire visit. Her father couldn't look at her. How could you bring this shame on our family? He said before leaving. Isabella had never felt more alone. But Peter didn't give up. On the 4th day, he came to her cell with something new in his eyes. Hope. I found something, he said. A witness, a hotel cleaner named Tracy. She saw something that night. Isabella's heart leapt. What did she see? She saw 3 people entering that hotel room around 1 a.m. You were unconscious, being carried, but there were 2 others with you, a man and a woman. The woman matched the description you gave of Vera. Oh my God, Isabella breathed. So I'm not crazy. She's real. More than that. Tracy took a photo on her phone. She thought something looked wrong, and she was going to report it to security. But then she got scared and went home instead. She's been following the news, and when she saw your face, she came forward. Peter showed Isabella the photo on his phone. The photo was grainy, taken from a distance, but it showed exactly what Tracy had described. Isabella, clearly unconscious, being supported by a woman with Vera's distinctive short haircut and red jacket. And beside them, helping carry her. That's Stephen, Isabella whispered. Or the man I thought was Stephen. We ran facial recognition. His real name is Jeff Okafor. He's a known associate of Michael Adiemi's wife. Works as let's call him a fixer. Everything clicked into place. The chance meeting at the conference, the slow build of attraction, Vera's sudden friendship, the invitation to the lounge, the drinks, all of it choreographed, planned, executed with cold precision. They were going to kill him anyway, Isabella realized. They just needed someone to blame. Peter nodded grimly. Michael Adiemi was drugged with the same substance they gave you, Rohypnol. They brought you both to that room unconscious. Killed him. Put the knife in your hand while you were out. Staged everything. Then they called the police and disappeared. But why me? Isabella's voice cracked. Why target me specifically? You were perfect, new to Abuja. No strong family connections here. Trustworthy appearance. No criminal record. And most importantly, you were lonely. Vulnerable to friendship, to romance, to the promise of connection. The truth of it hurt worse than any physical pain. She'd been so desperate to be less lonely, less boring, less invisible, that she'd walked right into a trap. "Can we prove any of this?" she asked. "Tracy's testimony and photo are a start. But I've hired a private investigator. If this Jeff and this fake Vera exist, we'll find them. And when we do, this whole house of cards comes down." It took 2 more weeks. 2 weeks of Isabella rotting in a cell, watching her life disintegrate from behind bars. 2 weeks of Peter working 18-hour days, following leads, interviewing witnesses, building a case. And then, finally, the breakthrough. The private investigator, a tough woman named Glory, found them. Jeff Okafor and the woman who'd called herself Vera, real name Patricia Deary, had fled to Lagos, thinking they'd gotten away with it. But Glory was better at her job than they'd anticipated. She traced Patricia through an old arrest record for fraud. Found Jeff through his association with Michael's wife, who, it turned out, had been wiring money to an offshore account Patricia controlled. When the police raided the compound where they were hiding, they found everything: burner phones with messages detailing the plan, bank records showing payments from Michael's wife, and most damning of all, a video. They'd recorded the entire setup, drugging Isabella, carrying her unconscious body to the hotel, staging the murder scene. They'd kept it as insurance, leverage against Michael's wife if she tried to cut them out of payment. It was their arrogance that saved Isabella's life. The charges were dropped on a Tuesday morning. Isabella and her lawyer Peter were very excited. She walked out of the courtroom into blinding sunlight, Peter beside her, cameras flashing everywhere. "How do you feel, Miss Isabella? What will you do now? Do you forgive the people who did this to you?" She didn't answer any of them. She got into Peter's car and asked him to drive her home. Her apartment looked exactly as she'd left it 23 days earlier. But Isabella wasn't the same person who'd left it. That night, she stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection again. The girl who'd gotten ready for a night out 3 weeks ago seemed like a stranger. That Isabella had been innocent in a way she could never be again. This Isabella knew the truth. The world was full of people who would use your loneliness as a weapon. Who would see your desire for connection and turn it into a trap. But she also knew something else. She'd survived, when everything had been stripped away. Her freedom, her reputation, her sense of self. She'd found something unbreakable at her core, a strength she never knew she had. 6 months later, Isabella stood in a community center in Jabi, facing 30 young women who'd come to hear her speak. "My name is Isabella," she began. "And I want to tell you about the night I trusted the wrong people." She told them everything, not to scare them, but to empower them. She taught them about date rape drugs, about how to protect their drinks, about trusting their instincts when something feels wrong, about the importance of real friends who know your family, who exist in your life in tangible, verifiable ways. After the talk, a girl who couldn't have been more than 20 approached her, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," the girl whispered. "I've been talking to this guy online for months. He wants me to meet him alone at his place next weekend. I was going to go, but after hearing your story..." She paused. "I'm going to ask him to meet me in public first, with my cousin there, just to be safe." Isabella hugged her. "That's smart. That's not being paranoid or boring. That's being alive. Because that's what it came down to, in the end." Isabella had survived so she could help others survive. Patricia Deary and Jeff Okafor were sentenced to 20 years each for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and fraud. Michael Adiemi's wife, Gloria, received life in prison for orchestrating her husband's murder. Michael's children got justice for their father, and Isabella got her life back. Not the same life. A better one. One built on truth instead of loneliness. On genuine connections instead of desperate ones. On self-worth that didn't need validation from strangers in dark lounges. She eventually found real love with a man named David who she met through a colleague who met her family before their first date. whose life was open and verifiable and real. She started a nonprofit, One Night Foundation, dedicated to educating young people about predatory schemes and personal safety. And sometimes, late at night, she thought about Vera, or Patricia, or whoever that woman really was. She wondered if Patricia ever thought about her, if she felt any remorse for nearly destroying an innocent life. But mostly, Isabella thought about the girl she used to be, the one who thought being careful meant missing out on life. She knew better now. True living wasn't about taking reckless risks or trusting too easily. It was about honoring yourself enough to be selective with your trust, brave enough to be alone rather than in dangerous company, strong enough to be the boring one if it meant staying safe. One drink, one night, one decision to trust the wrong people. That's all it took to almost destroy Isabella's life forever. But here's what they didn't count on: her will to survive, her refusal to be just another victim, her determination to turn her nightmare into a warning that might save others. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt pressured to be less careful, less boring, less protective of yourself, I need you to hear this. Your life is worth protecting. Your caution isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. And anyone who makes you feel bad for having boundaries doesn't deserve access to your life. Isabella learned this the hardest way possible. You don't have to. So let me ask you, have you ever ignored a gut feeling about someone? Have you ever been in a situation that felt wrong but you stayed anyway? What did you learn from Isabella's story? Drop your lessons in the comments below.